This wasn't actually, like I said, it wasn't planned, but this doing this right here, right now. But one of the things I think as men that we need to start doing is expecting more. And I think one of the problems we have is we don't expect anything. We just kind of, just kind of go with the flow, just whatever comes or whatever goes. No real. I mean, we have goals. Most people. If you look back in the past, most people's goal was to work on a job 30 years, 40 years, and not to do anything pretty much past that. And, to retire from it or whatever. But most people never expected to go beyond that. I mean, the goal was to hopefully buy a home and own a home, and you get a 30-year mortgage, pay the home off after 30 years, and or really most of the time, some people didn't even live long enough to pay it off. Their children had to. So there's this thing where it's not, people just expect to get by or expect to survive, not to really thrive. And I think that one thing as men we've got to really start doing is expecting more. We got to start expecting to have more. And like I said, I'm not trying to knock anybody's background, anybody's belief system, but there are some spiritual systems and some religions that teach people that that you shouldn't have anything. I remember Reverend Ike. People used to have an issue with Reverend Ike because all he talked about was prosperity, prosperity. Then you had the prosperity preachers that always talked about prosperity, prosperity, prosperity. But there are two things I will say about the prosperity preachers and also Reverend Ike and his whole preaching. The reality is, for all the people that talked about the prosperity preachers, none of them were broke. And the people usually talked about them, they usually didn't have very much. So say what you want to about the prosperity preachers, at least they weren't. At least they had something. Now you might say, well, how did they get it? Did they got it from robbing people in the church? Let me just say this here, and this is being real. And I'm not trying to defend any prosperity preachers, or I'm not trying to defend anybody that any particular spiritual system. But let me just say this right here. Here's the reality. Nobody, and I mean nobody, is getting rich off of a congregation. I don't care if you got, let's say you got a congregation of 30,000 people, and you have to pay for the utilities, you got to pay for the lights, you got to pay for whatever else you got to pay for. And people are giving, people are giving, people are giving. Now, I do know that there was a situation one time where this one man asked the church to, I don't know which preacher it was, but he had the church to get him a plane. And he asked him to donate to his plane. But that was only one particular thing. I'm not saying he probably should have got it on his own, but regardless of the fact, he had them donate for his plane. Now, the thing is that even though you had these people making all this money and they're getting paid, from the church, they are not making all their money from the church. They may be making a good portion of it, but they're not making all their money out the church. Some of their money is coming from books they're writing, other businesses and things. They may have taken some of the money they're making from the church and invested it in other things to make it grow and to make more money. But the church itself is not the bulk of their finances. But I think the reason why people used to get so angry about that was because of the fact that they look at all the money these people are making, but the people in the congregation are broke. But this is something that you always have to ask yourself when you have a situation like that. Is it the reason they're broke because they're not getting a salary like him, or is the reason they're broke because they're not understanding the message and properly applying it? Because the thing about most of those guys, and if you look at them, they really did defend their right to have what they have, and they never back down. They expected to have something. They expected to not be broke. And a lot of these guys, when they started, they weren't broke when they started. They may not have been wealthy, but they weren't broke. And they just kind of built on that. Then they started preaching about prosperity because they felt like they should have it. If you go back in most of those guys, and if you look at them, and you'll see that maybe they started off, they didn't have very much. Then they started preaching it, and the more they preached it, what they preached came to reality. there is a thing that once your expectation is elevated, what you receive does too. The biggest problem we need to do is change our thinking and get to a point where we start expecting more. And, rather than just the status quo, we got to change the way we think as men. We got this, a lot of times, we usually just thinking, okay, let me find me a side hustle. Let me find something that's going to get me by. We're not thinking wealthy, because that's something that for a lot of us, we don't think that, okay, I can attain that. But we really got to start thinking a lot higher and a lot bigger than what we've been thinking. Because all we're doing is just spinning our wheels in the same place. And most people are dying, leaving debt, and the debt is being passed on to the children. My question is, for those that, especially those that believe the Bible said that a man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. Most people can't even get to the children's children because you can't even get to the children. So, you can leave debt, but you're not really leaving anything of any monetary value. But the reason being is expectation. And I'm just going to say this right here, and I've seen a lot of people lately talking about this. You can look at a lot of people that's got bad attitudes, they're nasty, but they're not broke. Why is that? Because there are universal laws that are just in place. Sowing and reaping is a law. If you look at a lot of rich people that donate to charity, you think they donate to charity because they love those people? No, they donate because I know people may say, well, it's for the tax benefit, which is true. But also a lot of them understand that giving produces results. It doesn't matter why you gave. It doesn't matter that you love the fact that you gave. It doesn't matter that you are crazy. Oh, I just really feel this. But and that's good. It's good to love people and to care. But regardless of whether you love or whether or not you care, you still need to give, because what you sow, you reap. You need to be planting those seeds. So one of the things when you start talking about expectation, you can never expect more if you're holding on to little. You need to be trying to do something, trying to help somebody, trying to do something to take what you have and increase it. It's like when you look at the talent in the scriptures where it talks about the man with the talents, and it said that the one that had 5 talents buried the 5. I mean, he took the 5 and multiplied it, came back 10. The one that had I think he had the 2 talents, and he went in, he multiplied it and came back with 4. I believe that's where it went. I could be off. And then I think the one he buried the 1 talent and brought the same one back. He didn't do anything with it. And I think the way the story goes, he was called wicked because he didn't do anything with what he had, because he didn't expect any more. When you expect more, you do better. So I just going to say that as men, we've got to start expecting to have more than what we've generally been expecting. We got to raise our level of expectation. When you expect more, see, the reason why people don't like to give, and I'm not talking about in church necessarily, just give in general, because they're worried. What's the first thing people say when they give something? When am I going to get it back? Because you're so afraid of going without. So when you can give just freely and not worrying about, let the universal law work. It's going to bring it back. It's going to get deposited back with interest. But if you don't get to the point where you are expecting it, you won't receive it. So we really got to work on our expectation to elevate our level of thinking, our level of belief system, our level of, we bottom line, we just got to level up. We got to level up. We got to start expecting more so we can get more. That was just on my mind, so I wanted to go ahead and just lay that out there. So that's that.